Okay, so welcome everyone to Cosplay the Spice of Life. We've got some experienced cosplayers here that are going to share deep secrets and little tricks and opinions, and we'll argue about some things and agree about a lot more, and we'll kind of see how this goes. So I'm going to throw it to Katherine. She can introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Katherine, Katherine Fisher. I've been going to Comic-Con since 2005 and been in the masquerade every year since then. I like to make a lot of crazy costumes like the Chewy's Angels. I like the sexy costumes like Lady Joker, and just always like to do all sorts of mixing and matching costumes. I have my degree in fashion design and moved to California to do that, but I quickly found out when I moved to LA, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and I didn't know anything, so, or anyone. I know everything, I just don't know anyone. So now I do costumes for fun and occasionally for a little profit.
Cool. Okay, welcome. My turn. I am Bob Mogg. I go by the Iron Tailor. I started doing costuming with historical reenactment, Renaissance fairs, Civil War events, things like that. Got into steampunk 2008-ish, just because there are no rules, so it's a lot of fun and you can play with things and do grand and crazy things and have a wonderful time with it. And then in about 2014, I decided that I would start sharing tutorials about the things I've done. And so at the irontailor.blogspot.com, you can see, I think I've crossed over 400 projects now, covering all sorts of costuming, strange things, wonderful stuff, where to find things, how to build stuff. And I'm hoping that people are getting something out of that and having a good time with it.
Awesome.
Oh.
Loki.
Yeah, that's me. I'm a little bit difficult to fit with the horns here. So I'm from Brazil, and that's why I have the accent. And I'm really thank you for being with me. The first time I started to cosplay was with my friends doing anime. It was amazing to be around and pretending to be something and somebody else. And I really enjoy doing my interaction with people and bring fun to the conventions. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, welcome.
Welcome.
And last and certainly not least, Super Dan.
Hello, everyone. I am Dan Moyer, but I also go as Super Dan. I am a part of a few cosplay groups right now, including the Sci-Fi Coalition and the Geeky Guys and Gals for God. I've been cosplaying since 2012, and I've been going to Comic-Con since 2009. And I do have a theme, as you can see, of Superman or Superman-based costumes that has been starting mainly because of the show Smallville. That really got me into the character since my high school days, and I've been going as Superman ever since, just trying to inspire hope wherever I go.
Nice.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So cosplay. This, I guess, throws out to all of us. We all pretty much seem to costume because we want to, and not really because we're, making huge amounts of money or anything else about it.
Like Dan said, his inspiration is Superman, and Smallville really spoke to him, and the character Superman speaks to a lot of people, and that's why Dan cosplays as Superman. And I like the Joker, just like Loki does. That's actually how she and I met, through the Sci-Fi Coalition group, which is also where Dan and I met. And we both like to do Joker cosplays. And we go out, we make our own photo shoots. We go to Balboa Park and just take pictures of each other in front of the fountain and doing silly things. And I bring my tripod so we can do shots of us together with the timer, and just do what inspires you. Like my Chewy's Angels, I love Star Wars. I made a Chewbacca costume, and that was so cool, and I wanted to make a feminine one. I was like, I want one, but like girly. And so I made my Lady Chewie costume, and then I came up with the idea of making pastel colored ones. That's how Chewie's Angels was born. You know, Chewbacca, Chewie's Angel, Charlie's Angel, Chewie's Angel. So like, you know, take the inspiration from things that you like.
You mentioned the Sci-Fi Coalition. How important are groups? What can you get out of joining a group?
Well, right there, straight away, just like with Loki and Dan, you know, friendship. You and I met in the San Diego Costumers Guild, which is, and you know, met so many interesting people in those groups, and they have events. We met on one of the walkabouts that they used to have at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. And through the Sci-Fi Coalition, I've gotten to do some really cool volunteering, like for Rady's Children's Hospital. I've done a couple of events there. I've gotten to be part of, just recently here during the coronavirus deal, I got to be part of a food drive. I wore my my green Wookiee, which is Chewbacca's Irish girlfriend costume. And so I had my mask on and got to be in costume, making people happy and smile. So being in a group is fantastic because you can make these connections and friendship.
And also they can help you grabbing you, so your stuff.
Ah, they can be handlers.
Yes.
That is also important.
Yeah, we'll get to where does Superman carry his wallet later when we talk about all costumes. In your groups, does everybody have super deluxe wonderful costumes, or do you have people just starting out as well?
Dan, why don't you take that question? You've been in the group a little longer than I have, and you've been to a few more events than I have. I think so. You've got I kind of have a feel for what the group has, but I think you have probably a better idea.
Okay, in that case, to answer that question, I'd see a wide variety of costumes in terms of quality. You definitely have your starters, and then you have people who have been doing it for some time. And one thing that I think is great about also being in a group is if you want to improve, other members are usually more than happy to help you or give you tips on how you can improve it, or where you can get material and what online stores to go to, and just basically just ways to inspire one to improve their costume should they want to, or even if they are just starting out with a low budget costume, people are super supportive of that too. Like, it's not necessarily about quality of costume, but you know, did you put your heart into it? Do you enjoy what you're doing? That's the part that matters the most. But I personally do like improving and trying to see what I can find and what resources I can get new parts from. So yeah, I guess I'm somebody who plays on both sides in terms of I appreciate good quality, but I'm supportive of those who start off as well.
Good. You're gonna start, you all start at the beginning sometime in your life. So
Yeah, for me, for example, I prefer find something that is comfortable for me. Like being Loki, I have this huge horns, so for me it needs to be very light. Otherwise, I will start to have headache, and I'm not going to be able to enjoy the entire convention. I know some cosplayers cannot wearing their full costume during the entire convention, so they do a lot of breaks. But I am the kind of person like, I need to enjoy this, I want to be till the end, and so that's why I prefer find out a great material which is make me move freely. Okay, this helmet I made like 5 times or 4. I completely forgot. My first version was completely a mess. I'm not proud of it all. Well, I'm a Virgo, so it also I keep improving every time. But yes, I think it's a part of the game. It is super fun to see your evolution. Yes.
I think that points out too, if you see someone in a really awesome outfit, walk up to them, say, "You look fabulous," and start asking questions, because they will admit, yeah, this is my 5th attempt at it. This is something we've been struggling with, but this is what you should really do. And I think I've learned more from just walking up to absolute strangers and gushing all over their costumes, and they've told me wonderful ideas and tips, and I run out and immediately make something out of it. So.
That's something I do every year at Comic-Con's DC Comics photo shoots. Like, I see good Superman costumes that I'm really awed by, and I just ask him, okay, how did you get that symbol? Did you make it? How'd you get the rest of your bodysuit? Because sometimes there's particular parts of a costume that look really good, and then I'd want to add that to my own repertoire of costumes or costume pieces and go from there. And so I have to agree with you wholeheartedly in terms of just being able to walk up to somebody and compliment them on their work, which also boosts them up as well, because if they worked really hard on their costume, and if somebody, you know, a random stranger comes up and just says, wow, I just really love your outfit, it's just like a big, I think it's a big confidence boost.
Yeah, particularly if they're in a great outfit too.
Mm-hmm.
Then you know that they know how difficult it is to do some of these big monsters and walk around in something crazy like that all day.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Oh, this is our favorite little chart. You can make it good, you can make it cheap, you can make it fast. Sometimes you can have as many as 2 of these, but you can never have 3 at once. Let's just run through the panel. What are your favorite, or what are your bigger concerns here? If you can only have 2, which 2 do you want? Loki, which 2 do you want?
I will go with good quality. I'm a very slow person of building my own stuff. Like, I think, well, when I started to cosplay, I need like 6 months just to build my first version of my Loki. And I like the cheap, but the cheap for me, it's just for one day convention. I like to hug. Okay, I'm a Brazilian, I'm Portuguese, so people like to hug you, kiss you, they mess up with their costumes, so I cannot use low level qualities because people is going to destroy your costume. So this is all EVA. and you also have to consider those, you're going to movement. Some people in the middle of the conventions ask you like, hey, can you fake a battle against this Batman, or can you like can Thor throw you in the floor and so you get help, you know, the scenes. They do that, and how can I do it with a cheap like hard paper? Like, so that's why I like the okay, I make 1 costume per year. Like, that's the way I make costumes, because I have other stuff I like to save my money for. That's my opinion.
Okay, Katherine.
If I can only choose 2, I'm choosing good and I'm choosing cheap. And I choose cheap as in materials are not that expensive, but it's going to take me, it's definitely not going to be fast because I'm going to have to take my time in making that costume. So I want it to be good quality, but I want it to be affordable. And I like coming up with new ways to use something that someone would never think of using for a costume that you can get at the 99-cent store or the dollar store, or and you know, which is not, that's not expensive, that's cheap, but you turn it into something cool, you integrate that in your costume. So I would always go with good and cheap. Fast, you're gonna go, I'm kind of like Loki, it takes me a while. I have certain little you know, since I do have my degree in design, I know a few little couture tips and tricks, and that adds on to the time of your costume. I have to always add, you know, quite a bit of time for my time management. I add extra because I know I'm gonna need time and then some. So good and cheap, those are my 2.
Super Dan.
Okay, so for me, I would have to go with good and cheap as well, just because so in the beginning of my journey, I was definitely more for the cheaper because I couldn't afford as much before I had a job. But then once I managed to get a job, I decided to basically order parts online, and some parts took time to deliver. And so I always made sure that I took that into account. And so I am good with, so I can be pretty patient with that. So I'm definitely on the, I'm still on the good and cheap side, but if it's a little expensive too, I'm okay with that, because in other areas of life, I'm usually pretty frugal. So therefore, I feel like I can get away with spending money on more expensive costumes because I've managed my budget for other expenses. I mean, once I take care of those first, budget those out and say, okay, am I going to have the budget and the patience for another full suit, which I usually nowadays get them made by a costume maker called Custom Costumes, specializes in superhero cosplays. Takes him a few months, but I think he gets the job done well, so I just plan it with patience and budget in mind.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to agree that I'm in the good and cheap camp, but with that same proviso that Katherine threw out, that I want to get the materials and the pieces as cheaply as possible and then build them into the best quality costume I can, because it, like Loki said, it has to be comfortable. You're wearing this thing all day long. You're going to wear it multiple times. Has to be able to hold up. You have to be able to do something with it. That's what gets us into that time is money that all of you said, oh, I like to use low priced materials, but then you're talking about the months of work you're putting into it. And, you know, if you were to really do it for someone else and charge them $20 an hour, you're looking at a costume like the dive suit is 3 months of pretty continuous work. There's probably $2,000 or $3,000 worth of labor in it if I were paying somebody else for it. But it's a hobby. You know, I'm willing to put this much money a month, like you said, out of my budget. It's a hobby. I'll put that money into it. I don't go out to movies. I'll put that money into the costume. And then with the time I put into it, it's, yeah, I keep saying, oh, yeah, you can make that for $40, but you're going to spend 3 months, most of your evenings, most of your weekends working on it. So those are the kind of trade-offs. I've also made things, gone to the closet, pulled them together, and gone running out the door in 20 minutes. But like Loki says, those tend to fall apart pretty darn quick, and you have problems with them. I love Super Dan, your idea that, you know, when people think Superman, they think the classic Christopher Reeves outfit, but all of the costumes I've seen you in are very different. I know they're all canon out of one of the sources. And it was neat you saying that, oh yeah, it's coming out of Smallville. That was great. That's one of those things that you can't just go into a costume store and buy those. You have to make them yourself, or you have to have them custom built. So it is a way that you can make exactly what you want.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think a lot of people, they're interested in cosplay, they're interested in being able to either put their own twist on it, and we'll talk about that in mashups, or really personalize it to exactly what they're interested in. So good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, okay, now we're talking to beginners that maybe you don't like to sew, or your outfit needs something a little different that you don't have. I know when I started, I was a really good carpenter and not a good sewer, and I would trade carpentry skills for sewing skills. And that's what I did in the costume guild, is I would do carpentry work and people would turn around and do sewing for me until I actually learned some of this stuff. What do you think are the most important skills for the beginners to start working on?
I would say, you know, like I'd start out with either converting an existing Halloween costume, going to the Spirit and Halloween stores the day after Halloween when everything's 50% off. You can get props there. You can get the costumes there for half price. And then you can work on turning that into a custom costume for you. You can, you know, buy a larger costume, and then you can trim it down and cut to fit you exactly the way you want it to fit. And thrift stores, I love to go to thrift stores and buy, you know, things, especially when I do my Wasteland costuming, like the picture on screen. That's my good friend Allison, who was on our Cosplay 101 panel last year. The Wastelanders, their aesthetic is basically existing clothes that have just been like put through the ringer because it's the post-apocalyptic world now. And so we just get thrift store stuff and bleach and ripping things up and everything and just turning into that Wasteland aesthetic. And with like the thrift stores, sometimes I'll go there, you can buy sheets, you can buy curtains there for like $2, and you're buying probably about $20 worth of fabric, you know, for $2 at a thrift store. So I like the thrift stores we rent because you can get the base, you know, a base for your costume, and then you can add on to it. And tutorials online, I love YouTube. I've got different categories in my use of like makeup skills for later. I'm trying to make a mermaid tail. So I've got all these YouTube tutorials for mermaids and like the different, not subscriptions, but whatever you call it, so online tutorials are great. And starting with a basic, either a store-bought costume or thrift store, and then adding on to it, then altering it the way you want. If you don't know how to sew, if you don't have a sewing machine, and you can't trade trade a skill you have with someone who can sew, that's a good way to start out. Converting something. And I think, Dan, you kind of started out like that, right? You buy the costumes and then you started to get your own ideas.
I did, and thrift store shopping was a part of my first couple of costumes, actually, where I would actually buy, let me think for a moment, like I wanted to go for a more of an armored Superman look, and so I literally bought pads and spray painted them. So basically like arm guards and shin guards, and then used an old cape that I had from Six Flags and a shirt. So it was definitely it was one of my lower budget suits, but it was also super comfortable. So that, so yeah, buying parts from a thrift store is good. And sometimes even if you don't see something at face value, I have a friend who really likes taking straps, like from backpacks and cases and bags. So sometimes I'll just take a part of an item and then use that for a costume. So sometimes you have to look beyond just the item itself, but maybe dissect it and then using certain aspects of a particular item of clothing or baggage at a thrift store.
It doesn't even have to be clothing. I've got a video out there on YouTube on how to skin a leather sofa, which is actually one of the most popular ones I have out there. That old leather furniture, even if it's torn up in the front, the back that's being against the wall is perfect. And you can get yourself, I think the last one I tore apart, I figured I got well over 50 square feet of leather. So, I mean, that's a couple of $100 worth of leather right there. And not to count the $8 and change I found in the cushions. I mean, so all these things pay off. They're a wonderful way to do it. But I think that's where I get into steampunk, that you can repurpose so many things. Mm-hmm. It's a fun genre to work in. And when I'm doing more specific, the Star Wars stuff, I either have to build from scratch or I have to find some interesting pieces that, like Katherine said, costume shops, and then use those as the base and build up, or just tear them apart and only use one piece out of it. We've done that quite a bit.
Yeah, me too. I completely agree with all the stuff like Katherine said and Super Dan. Just for add here, I would say just you need courage and just to start. Just be able to not feel uncomfortable with people looking at you, or it's just you need to be a little bit accustomed of people coming to you and asking for photos. I think people cannot be so shy for being a costume, because you're going to be, all the eyes going to be on you, especially. And don't be afraid of it, and try to enjoy and act like the character, or if it is also, or maybe is an original character, which is more easy to do because you can be yourself instead of being something else, but not follow your characterist. Yeah. But yeah, I have the same opinion as you guys. About.
There we go. Oh, materials. I know Katherine mentioned fabric is sometimes hidden in sheets and curtains and even other clothing, and you're playing with it.
I get a lot of big, like extra large dresses, and I can cut that down and make that into a dress for me. Or I'll get men's pants, like with a size 40 waist, and I'll just cut it out. I'll turn that trousers for me. So.
Okay. Now, I don't do a lot of makeup stuff, so I'm not the one to talk about this at all.
I do some makeup. I'm trying to learn to do more, special effects. I would really love to get into like the really hard special effects so I could make my Chewy's Angels masks instead of it being like a full-on mask like with a hood that you put on. I would love it if I could get it so that it was a prosthetic mask and then it'd be my lips that you see talking and it wouldn't just be this like static mask. So I'm still looking on that. And again, there's lots of great YouTube tutorials for that. Makeup, there's just the best makeups, tutorials on there. Drag queens have the best makeup, tutorials for any character you want. I would also like to someday invest in an airbrush so that I could really do some like full-on body makeup, be like Mystique and just be all in blue and not have to wear a bodysuit for most of it. So yeah, makeup, the great tutorials online and different books and stuff. And again, just talk to your friends. Loki, she does a really good Joker, so she gave me some tips and tricks on how to do my white face for my Joker.
I'm horrible with makeup. Seriously. I do completely wrong because I mess up with, okay, let's try. I start with the eyes instead of the make all the face white. Most of Jokers make all face white and then start to add here and there. No, I completely start like a printer. I go up and down because I start to put my fingers on my face and oh my God. But I'm a big fan of EVA. Yeah, yes. Like Loki's easy because I'm just like, oh, it's so good I can touch my face.
That is true. That's what I'm doing. When my face itches, I bring a foundation brush with me so I can just be like, oh.
That's a good point. At some point, I would actually like to do a Bizarro cosplay and be able to get, white face makeup and add some cracks onto there to make it more like the character himself. But I didn't think about that as like ways to scratch your face without messing up the makeup, because that is definitely something I know I'm going to face because I'm definitely a face toucher myself. So when it comes to that, I'll have to keep that in mind when if I do a Bizarro costume.
We'll come up with something for that.
Nice. Okay.
Loki, you mentioned you like working with EVA foam. I've been into it the last year or two, but you look like you're doing the detail work on a lot of your costumes with that. Is that helmet EVA?
Yes, it's all EVA. I can bend actually.
Nice. Nice.
That's how she got it here from Brazil. She just folded it all up in her luggage.
Well, that is how do you pack this stuff sometimes. To travel is an adventure.
Yeah.
I tried once 3D printer, but I have to say it's super heavy. If you are the kind of person which wants details, go for 3D printer, but be prepared because they're heavy. And then some friends of us use it, and just the helmet, like, come on, you have to be very strong or be physical prepared for those. And the important thing is I started with clay, doing my armor with clay, harder clay, polymer clay. You just put on you heat it and start to be hard. But again, it's Brazil. People start to hug me and break my armor. Like, so I need something that could be bending, easy. This is also foam. The thing I just spend more time doing the details. So I have my look at that. Is always EVA as well, and inside of it has a bike. The thing people put on a bike.
Oh, bike light.
Yes. And that's it. How I figure out to make the jewel. I was like, yeah.
Very cool.
And also I use a drill. With the machine, you cut some little pieces. I think it's drill. So my English limitation.
Oh, a Dremel.
Dremel.
Yes.
Oh, Dremels are great.
To sharp way better the edges. So.
Yeah, Loki, I gotta say, that is that's a very interesting perspective in terms of what kind of materials you choose to use. With yours, it seems to be based off of social interaction and taking that into account. right? With people like hugging and touching and all of that. So, gotta say, I guess it's just something that never occurred to me, but
Me neither.
yeah.
People like to hit me. People likes to make me fall on the floor. They like to make it get help. And they like,
A lot of people in Thor costumes just like hitting you with Mjolnir. So it's like,
all for costume like to throw me in the floor. It's incredible.
Well, I know when you're talking, when we're talking about full body makeup, that I went as a Victorian Batman one time, and I was posing with a fair number of poison ivies. And so at the end of the day, I looked down and my one glove is almost all green from body makeup. And I was looking and thinking, what the heck did I get? And then the pictures come in and, oh yeah, I've got my hand, you know, behind one of the gals just kind of supporting her. And sure enough, a lot of that was flaking off. So that's another one of those things. Are you leaving little bits and pieces of your costume on the floor as you're walking along?
I actually have a story regarding that. So my very first costume was a more standard Superman suit minus the briefs, but it was made out of a shinier fabric. On the outside, it looked very very appealing, got a bit of a sheen to it. However, it was extremely delicate, and after I decided to take it out for a spin, maybe after once or twice, I noticed that the fabric, which was initially blue, had a white underlayer. And so that started peeling off as I went throughout my day at Comic-Con. And especially jointed areas like underarms or knees or anywhere that moved a lot was especially feeling it. So my suit went from like red and blue was like almost a flag just because of all the white parts showing. I actually attempted to cover some of the pieces with Sharpie just to see if I can cover up some of that white. It worked for a little while, but after maybe 4 or 5 wears, I'm just like, I can't do this. It was a good run, but it's important to realize that if you're going to be wearing something for a while, to check on the quality of your material. I learned that the hard way.
Well, and that's, again, is something you'd learn from talking to other people. Where they go, oh, that's great fabric, but it might not last too long in the next couple of years.
Mm.
Okay, good stuff. This. We just have some kind of general pictures here, just because these are people we've taken pictures of at Comic-Con and at various things where they've taken something very topical and come up with just some wonderful, wonderful ideas on them.
Fun twists.
The Wally and Eve one still to this day is one of the most amazing ones I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This is a great mashup. This was the Justice League crossed with A League of Their Own.
That's great.
Which was the 1940s women's baseball. And they did such a fabulous job on it.
Yeah, those are my favorite, just like with the poison, like my Chewie's Angels, that was a Charlie's Angels and Chewbacca mashup. And that's a beautiful Wonder Woman. Look at that. I just love like that. Like, is that Indian or Middle Eastern? I just love that. I don't even know who that is, but that is a fantastic Wonder Woman mashup.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's one thing that I've noticed with mashups, and Steampunk has a good way with mashing up with pretty much any character you want to do, because there's a lot of creative freedom in that. And at some point I do want to do a mashup of a Steampunk Superman and find my way into that. I found a jacket at Comic-Con that I still been meaning to buy.
Well, there you go. There's Steampunk Batman.
Nice.
Yeah, that was one of those interesting things to learn, that you can't pop 12-foot wings open just anywhere in Comic-Con. Those fold up enough that I can walk through the crowd and I can even sit down wearing them, which was the only brilliant thing I did in that outfit. It was, I had to occasionally just find a corner, pop it up, and then everybody wanted to come over for pictures. So, but like you said, you improve your costumes. The bat symbol looks good in this picture, but every place else it was black on black and disappeared. So later I put a gray background behind it, changed the helmet a little bit, just tweaking things in to make them a little nicer, a little better. And I think that's where you get some costumes that really start to look spectacular, is when people have got 3 or 4 years on them and they've continued to improve and improve and improve. So we tell people, no matter how much you think the costume sucks, you've got about 90% finished and you're just tied yourself in knots. Best thing to do is put it on, go out in public and watch what a great response you get. And that'll get you all charged up. It also gives you feedback about what worked, what didn't work. You rush back and you make changes and you take it out again. And that works just fabulous.
Just to add, I'm pretty sure like all of us here, we started with in the same point. Like we didn't was born with all these abilities. We growing up a little by little, conventions after conventions, and where we are, and that's it. Don't be so tough with yourself.
Yeah, when we talk about mashups too, it's one of those things that it can be very difficult to come up with those key elements that, I mean, obviously the Superman crest is instantly everyone goes, oh, Superman. And a lightsaber turns any outfit into a Jedi. But it gets a little more difficult when you get into some things and you try something you think makes sense and nobody gets it. I did the steampunk version of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and without the hood up, nobody gets it. But with the hood up, it's just automatic. Everybody's all over it. So it's tricky. And mashups, you're going to have to fine tune a little bit.
And there's
I like the Santa Superman, though. That's great.
Oh, well, thank you. Catherine here made it for me.
And it's my Christmas Wonder Woman. So that was really fun. That was something we did last year. We did a couple of volunteering events with our group.
That's, it's interesting when somebody throws something out there, and because somebody came up with, well, Catherine, the walkabouts we used to do, they would throw the most random themes out, because one year it was Steampunk Christmas. And we all just kind of stopped, like, what can you do? And the more we thought about it, the more great ideas came out, and there were some spectacular things that came from that. Wonderful things.
I met you. You were the steampunk chef, and I was going to put that picture in the PowerPoint, but I was like, I should have made a page just for fun steampunk mashups, because that was a cool one.
Oh, we could do our own panel on steampunk, weird steampunk mashup. Well, and that's, Dude Vader in a lot of ways. That's where he claims from that he did the steampunk version of Darth Vader on it, and it's out of control now. And he does something like 70 charity events a month. I mean, he's just out there all the time. So
he's in our group too. He's in the Sci-Fi Coalition.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's Catherine obviously in the spectacular Mad Max outfit.
And Bob's the one who taught me how to do the chainmail, and he made the rig, or actually made the chainmail for that. I made that at about 7 250-foot rolls of aluminum coil that I made or aluminum wire that I made all that out of. And I could not have made that without the tutelage of Bob Mogg. So thank you.
And it only took you 2 weeks, right?
Huh?
It only took you 2 weeks?
No, that took me probably about 3 to 4 weeks, and I was working real fast at it.
Yeah, you were working fast. Now, I know when you came up with that, I was amazed, because I did a hauberk like that. Well, maybe a little more coverage, but it took me 160 honest to goodness clock-in hours to do it. And that's that, again, the time is money thing. It's very time consuming, yet your material cost was a couple of bales of cheap wire.
Yep.
So,
yeah. I was working part-time back then, so I was able to do that for several hours a day. I know you did a lot on your lunch hours. So.
Yeah, that's a great way to meet your company president. You're sitting out there on your lunch hour making chainmail. It was stunning. And I was a temp at the time. That was the better part. How heavy was that? I always wanted to ask.
11 pounds total.
7.
11.
Oh, 11. That's
Yeah.
my suit's 40 pounds. So yeah, that's reasonable.
The one that that Tina Turner wore in the movie, that was not aluminum. Rumor has it weighed 70 pounds, but mine was only 11.
That again is making smart decisions early on. Good stuff. Yeah, the one in the middle is an amazing piece. It's one of those fool of the eye that it's supposed to be a little creature about half that height. But of course, the person standing up and looking out through the chair, that still could not have been comfortable to have worn all day.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
I did not realize that was a cosplay at first. I thought it was just a stack of stuff.
Amazing stuff. But that's the Coco outfits to me were amazing because though, I mean, pair of jeans, a red sweatshirt, but then the paint and the guitar and just, particularly putting the two of them together, that was just outstanding. That was at WonderCon. That was a wonderful one. More topical ones, of course, Moana, and of course our buddy Andy Holt as Hawkman. Those wings actually move. I'm a sucker for wings, so I'll take them every time I can. He pops up in front of that backdrop, and he is there blinded by flash bulbs for the next 20, 30 minutes.
At least.
Plus his wife has the Hawkwoman outfit that matches it. Amazing stuff. Another big wing one. I hadn't seen this one. You popped this one in, Katherine.
Yeah, that was from WonderCon from a couple years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. And
Yes, yeah.
I'm like you. I like wings. I've made wings for different angel costumes, but never that. That's really impressive. I don't know how. I don't know how they kind of fold it up, but that's definitely one where if they don't fold up, she's got to be staying outside in the area because you won't be able to walk into the halls in that. Yeah,
they rip your wings off real fast.
And then something casual. That's a fun, just hall costume. Zootopia.
And this one, we've seen people try to do this with way too much makeup. And this is so simple, yet it works beautifully.
And I think they could totally wear that if they went Disney bounding, because you can wear costumes to Disney, but they can't be too authentic, or else they don't want the attendee, the people going there to mistake you for working for Disney. So you can't have them too perfect, but that's a fun Disney bounding costume.
Yep.
Not to mention comfortable and something you can just be out in all day.
Yep.
Right. I do like the idea of casual cosplays and just how simple they are to wear, and just the endurance level will probably increase too.
And adding a shoulder bag to that wouldn't ruin it at all.
Yeah.
Which is important in Comic-Con. Yep. So that gets us to hall costumes. I think we've all worn something insane out on the hall, where you're living in something all day long and you're regretting it. Oh, they can be so hot, miserable, terrible. But to find something that is comfortable and has that storage, and you can sit and stand and you answer the ultimate question, can I use a bathroom in this costume? Well, Dan, I noticed a lot of yours are bodysuits.
Yeah.
How easy are those to get in and out of?
Okay, so given they are bodysuits, it does take a little bit of work. I mean, it especially after the end of a day, if it's a warm day, could take some effort. But I've learned over time to measure I usually give myself a little bit of room, so that way it's not doesn't feel like it's about to rip. And I also, with this particular suit, is actually my most compact one, because I can actually fit it in a backpack, the entire thing. So as well as a pair of casual clothes, so it's easy to switch out, where I can just have my costume on me without having to carry a large box or or multiple boxes for that matter.
Cool.
And fortunately, even though they are bodysuits, they're surprisingly breathable. if it's a warmer day, even if I get the slightest breeze, the suit takes them in. So they're actually not as bad as, let's say, like a full bound leather suit, or for example. So yeah.
Well, I think Loki mentioned handlers and how important they are. How important are handlers, Loki?
Yes, I always ask my friends to help me too, especially because I love to make shopping. While I'm a cosplay, I don't know why I choose the same day. So I'm low-key with a lot of bags. Like, yes, I'm buying myself because I always go for, the small toys and everything related to Avengers. And you always want to handle some water bottle because I don't know about you, but I need some water during the conventions, otherwise you get like a little bit dizzy. So it's good to have somebody to hold your stuff. And also, if you're going to go into the bathroom, you need to be aware if you are going to need somebody else to open your suit. Sometimes you need some help to. I remember when I made my Harley Quinn, I always have to ask somebody else who was also inside of the restroom, the bedroom, to help me to open the zip.
Mhm.
Yes.
All excellent points for
Oh,
all
and
costumes.
another thing about my Loki, I have to be aware of people who is on my sides because I can hit them with my giant horns.
Mhm.
Well, in that helmet, you've got good peripheral vision. Sometimes we'll end up in outfits where you can't see the side, you can't hear anybody,
Yes.
and those have their own problems. So then your handlers are real important. Really important. Okay. Few more mashups.
That's a cool one.
Hmm.
Just fun stuff.
I love the robot, but I cannot picture wearing it all day. Even the Thanos is, it's a lot of everything.
That's big time.
Oh yeah.
I've heard that they have to take occasional breaks and then just like take off certain pieces, just relax for a little while, and then they go back rather than trying to do it all day. They have to go in spurts.
Yep.
Especially when walking around the convention hall. Like, I don't know how they would do that. Like, if it were me, I would probably like focus on more of the outdoors or the less crowded areas if I were in a giant suit like that. But that's just my personal take, just because it's so crowded in the convention hall at Comic-Con.
Well, and you see people who are living in the lobby of Comic-Con. Their outfits are too big, they can't move around, and they are either there, or what's even popping up now is there are a lot of people who never go into the convention center. They spend all their time in the streets and Gaslamp Quarter, kind of, well, they're showing off. In some ways, they're also trolling for news crews, because news crews get more pictures outside than they can get inside. So that's become its own thing now. I know got a lot of friends that they keep an eye out and they talk to the news crews, and they're there at 5 a.m. sometimes for those early teasers. But it gets them on the news quite a bit. So if you did want to talk to people about wearing uncomfortable, difficult costumes and how to take breaks, I think the 501st, the Star Wars Legion, are some of the best. When you see those guys literally pouring sweat out of their helmets, you really understand how difficult it can be to wear some of those. And we know lots of people in the Star Wars group, and even the Mandalorians. The local costume guild is where Katherine and I met, and I've met a lot of people there. Tend to run a little more towards reenactment and historical, but it's amazing how much of that transfers for me to steampunk and other things like that.
That's how I got into steampunk and Victorian kind of costuming through the guild. We talked.
Are there any other groups out there you think are good?
I'm sorry, what?
Are there any other groups out there you think people should be talking to?
The Sci-Fi Co is a really good one. San Diego Costumers Guild, Star Wars, the San Diego Star Wars Society is a good one. That's another one I'm in. 501st, that's like if you have like the spot-on screen accurate costumes. But and then there's also just like little Facebook groups, like the We Retro Sew and different groups, you can find on Facebook that are sheep hoppers. The sheep hopper community is an awesome group for ladies who are into costuming.
So
Also
big.
is it the Replica Forum on Facebook? That's another Facebook group you can, learn a lot from.
There's a big group of anime fans that do cosplay out here, and they're amazing because they take kind of a little bit of a different approach to it. And they're a fun group. I started playing with them a little bit through one of the local little anime cons. And that's, sometimes the smaller cons can be a lot more accessible and you have more time to talk to the people and to do things. So that's something that, again, I'd push anybody. They're also a lot easier to get into, of course, and a lot cheaper. So it's something that I'll steer people towards those quite often, just because it can mean an awful lot of people. I know the Steampunk convention down here, maybe 70 to 80% of the people are in costume. They tend to run that direction. So that's kind of neat too.
I have to agree with you there. In the last couple of years, I've been attending smaller conventions as well, including that of San Diego Comic Fest, Rocket Con, as well as a few others that I can't think of at the moment. But they, the idea of just being able to converse with people and have space and physical space without having to constantly be on the move, and I see it as a much more relaxed environment going into the smaller conventions, just take it at your own pace and not as many big lines. So yeah, I just did my first, even WonderCon, I would call that like the a tamer version of Comic-Con for anybody who might be intimidated by the big crowds but still want that atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely recommend WonderCon, and I look forward to going again.
I know that when you did Chewy's Angels, Katherine, that's what I would call a group costume. You got multiple people that all coordinate together. Similar, Loki, if you were running with a Thor or a couple of other Avengers, the impact the group has is just tremendous. But what are the difficulties with doing a group costume as well?
Well, as Loki, I'm adopt. When sometimes I go by myself, especially in Comic-Con in São Paulo. That's what happened to me last year. I was just by myself, and just a couple of my, not friends, but people who become friends after, they just adopt me. Like, hey, we need a Loki in our group. We need to stab you, and we need to put in a new floor. So I was going to be alone, but I was adopted by a group of people who has the same universe. And that's Brazilian Portuguese way of doing. It's completely different when I compare Comic-Con in America and in Brazil. But yes, the thing is a completely different experience being a part of a team or a group, because one push another, and it turns in more interesting and more pose. Now you could be fighting pose, you could be funny pose, you could be eating pose. Some people, I don't know why people like to taking photo of you eating shawarma. Like did I pronounce right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you did actually.
With the Chewy's Angels, trying to make sure everyone's on time, and then so maybe I still want to be out there taking pictures, but the other two don't. Like, we were backstage in the pro lounge, and I'm like, let's get back out there. And they're like, no, this is so nice to sit down. And I'm like, we've been here an hour. Let's get back out there. So there are the pros and cons. The pros, yes, you're in the whole group and it's great together. But the cons, they might not want to come out and be other. It's like you have to deal with the the personalities of everybody in the group. So groups are fun, but doing your own costume is always fun too.
I'll add to that. I went to for Comic-Con a couple of years back. A group and I did the Guardians of the Galaxy actually for the second movie. I was actually Grandmaster. I had a friend who was Hulk, another person who was another Loki, Hela. So not Guardians, Thor Ragnarok, I'm sorry. So Thor Ragnarok was our cosplay set. And I think with us, our challenge was getting all the pieces in, especially the Hulk, because that was like a big, giant EVA suit that we put together. And so we had to like basically get all the pieces literally like on wheels and then push them throughout the convention center, find an elevator, take the elevators up, and just the logistics that one might not think about getting pieces over. You start really thinking about those things because it's gonna take some time to get, just to get all the pieces you need, depending on what you're wearing. So I guess for me, it's just a matter of, just coordinating with everybody, especially if people are doing different things throughout the day and you want people getting together just for like a segment of your day. That's always fun, trying to communicate with people throughout the convention center.
I noticed that both WonderCon and, of course, Comic-Con is famous for it. You will have appointments set up months in advance that, hey, all the DC heroes are going to meet at this time in this place to get those pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And truthfully, the pictures are awesome when you see, 50 to 100 people all themed roughly alike. I've even seen it where they've got Joker and Harley Quinn. That's all they have, and they still pull together 50. And that's something you can do at Comic-Con, and that's very cool. But the logistics of getting the word out, making sure everybody's aware of it, they're there on time. The other advantage, of course, is when you set that up, the photographers always hear about it, and they're just swarming on it. And that's a fun thing to do, too. Fun thing to do. Okay, we're pretty close to the end of our time. I'd like everybody just to kind of, throw one final question out. What is the one piece of advice you would give to another cosplayer?
Don't take it personally if someone doesn't like your costumes. You can't please everyone all the time. I personally think Chewy's Angels is one of the coolest things that's ever been out there. And when it first came out, most people loved it, but there were still people criticizing it, saying, "Oh, they've ruined Star Wars and Charlie's Angels for me." I'm like, you can't please everyone all the time. So don't take it personal if someone doesn't like your costume. As long as you're having fun, that's what matters most.
I would take what Katherine is saying. Yes, the cosplayer is for yourself, not to please others. Yes. And for the beginners, I would say, don't give up in the beginning. Just keep going. And just because your costume is not like the same, because when you're going to the conventions, always going to have somebody else who has the same character as you. And what people usually does is they compare. Oh, she has the best quality of doing this and that. And these kind of make people a little bit depressive or sad about seeing somebody else who has the same character and you're not the same level. But don't be sad. I used to be like that, but I use it for improvement. Like one day I will be like this guy. My Loki is crap now, but one day I will be like this one, and just keep going. And it's evolution, as I said. And because most of the time when I'm using my Loki and I see people using not a low level, they don't see it's not high quality of cosplay. And they start to be a little bit afraid of, they try to avoid you, not be on the same picture. So I always try to keep going. This is not a competition, never will be. It's just for fun. Sorry, I extended a little bit.
All right, I was just gonna add to that is my main piece would just be to enjoy what you're doing. Like, just as Katherine and Loki have said, just to just make the most of your time at a convention or when you begin cosplaying and enjoy what you do. That's the heart of it. I mean, I think that's ultimately why most of us cosplay, is for the joy we bring to ourselves and some of us to other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't give up and enjoy what you're doing. And if for some reason, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, maybe just take a step back and say, all right, how can I improve? And don't see yourself as, if your first one doesn't go well, I would recommend don't see yourself as, oh, I am a failure, but rather, okay, I see what could be better. Let's see what I can do. And instead, just work from there. Just see what went wrong or what you can improve on. And if you have the means to improve it, to make it more enjoyable for yourself, go for it.
Yeah, I would agree across the board. The emphasis on do what you like, do it because you enjoy the character. Even if the character is so obscure that 99 people don't have a clue, but that one who understands it will go nuts. I've done some that people literally stop us. That's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. Can I get your picture? Click, 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 click. Who are you? But they loved it. So, you know, that's the big thing. You're enjoying being the character. You're having a wonderful time.
And
Okay, I
also-
think that's
Oh, sorry. I
our
wanted to say,
wrap up.
being a cosplayer, it opens me to a lot of doors. I met wonderful people. If I wasn't a cosplay, I would never be able to find out these amazing people who's with me right now. So
Wonderful. Well, and we hope to see all of you amazing people at next year's Comic-Con or next year's WonderCon or a smaller convention near us. So use this time to build costumes like mad, and we'll see you next year.